What's up, hybrids? Welcome back to another episode of the Fandom Hybrid Podcast. This is Hanako, and I'm here with Anthony, Lori, and Mike, and we are discussing the 5th episode of the Wheel of Time series. And this episode starts out on a very somber note because we are picking up where we left off in the last episode with the deaths of some of the Aes Sedai, some of their warders, and some of the people who were in Logain's army coming to try to rescue him. I'm going to say this about this part and then also what we see through the rest of the episode. Stepin, when I tell you...
Emotional damage. I can't. No. Oh my God.
Perfect.
The beginning and seeing him progress through his grief, then the ending, and oh my God, like for real.
Everything.
I was wrecked. I was wrecked.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming.
Yeah,
but it doesn't make it easier. No, it doesn't. Because when I tell you that actor, when I tell you he played the shit out of that role, because I felt every single emotion he had in this episode. Even at the end of the last episode, we were talking about how you could feel, his connection with Kerine, and from the moment he felt her death and when he came and found her body, and then just the way his character kind of sleptwalked through the whole first part of the episode. Like, he literally was doing things by rote. Like, I just knew.
Like one moment he was fighting, the next moment he stops cold. Like literally, part of him was literally ripped from him. Like, he stopped cold, and it's like,
and you can see it in the way he was.
Mm-hmm, when he carried her and put her in her grave, like, he was literally sleepwalking doing that. Like, he was like, he wasn't the same person. Like, he wasn't whoever he was. Like, it was heart-wrenching, man. Oof.
It was his whole performance through this whole episode. Like, dude, I mean, it hurt trying to rewatch. Like, I haven't watched it for a couple of weeks, so I sat and rewatched it today. It physically hurt to rewatch this episode because you could feel everything this dude was feeling. Like, just the way that he talked about how they met, and he had so much emotion, but at the same time had no emotion at all. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of like you could hear it in his voice how much she meant to him and how much that exchange was, and how void he is without her there. It's just he did an amazing job.
His performance was incredible. And like, I just want to draw your attention to when he was putting on the white outfit, and you could just see he was like, this was not comfortable. This was not something he wanted to put on. He kept shifting and he kept moving it. Like, he didn't really want to wear it, and it didn't fit right. It just didn't feel right to him. You could just feel all the emotion in him, and just, sitting there and feeling with it. And it was brilliant. I mean, I was sitting there, I was like, wow.
And I'm looking at the part where he's like trying to put the funeral shroud over her face, and he stops, and it's literally like someone's pushing against him, like he can't do it, and like the raw emotion on his face, and then my man, why can I never remember it? Then Lan comes and puts his hand on his shoulder, and it's like, it's okay, and he was finally able to do it. Heart fucking, like, for real.
When they're going through the city, and you see him with her horse, and her boots are on stirs backwards, saying that her time is gone. That's when I lost it. When I saw the boots, I was like, okay, I'm out.
Yeah, and the audience knows, the crowd knows what that means. And
yes.
They gasp.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
it was perfect. It was perfect.
I have goosebumps right now. But I mean, that whole story, about the connection, like, I think, we, in the first few episodes, we're told about the Aes Sedai and their warders, and, how close their bond is. And I think this episode perfectly illustrated that.
Yeah,
Like
it was a
just
master
how
class.
deep it is.
It was a master class on how the water bond with the Aes Sedai works.
And not just with them, but you see the closeness of the warders as well. And I love seeing the relationship and the friendship between Stepin and Lan, because it's like Lan is trying to be there for him. My cat is making noise. It's like Lan is trying to be there for him, and he's trying to say things that are comfort him, or kind of, I don't know. He's trying to be comforting, but there's that one thing that he says to him when he says something about when you bond with another Aes Sedai, like saying this won't be, you won't feel this empty forever. You'll have a chance to bond. And he was like, you lose Moraine and you tell me how easy it is to go from woman to another woman. And I was like, yeah. I know he didn't. And the way he looks at Lan after he says that is kind of one of those, like, I didn't mean for it to, I wasn't trying to be that harsh, but I needed you to understand what that's like. That's like telling somebody whose wife just died, oh, but you'll marry again. Like before the body isn't even cold. Yeah. So just watching those performances in regards to that, and the way that he handled it, and him going to Nynaeve and asking for the tea so he can try to sleep, and she's like, are you not sleeping at all?
Yeah, are you still having trouble sleeping?
Yeah, he's like, well, just when I get ready to drift off, the pain goes away. She's like, good. And he was like, no, that's not good. That's the only thing I have of her left. I was like, okay, I have to pause the TV, because it's one of those things, we always talk about, there are characters who come into a show sometimes, and you can be with a character for a whole season and still not have that kind of connection to a character. But then you have another character who comes in and they may be there for a scene, or they may be there for 1 or 2 episodes, and you feel so emotionally attached to this character because of what they bring to the scene. That's how I feel about Stepin, and even Kerine, because we didn't really see a lot of Kerine in the last episode, but I feel like I lost something in losing her character because of what he gave us in his grief. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's just.
I also like that it gave us an insight into the warders, and they didn't give us a whole lot, not as much as I would have liked, but they did let us in on, how they have their own section of the White Tower where they're kind of free to be themselves. Mm-hmm. Where they kind of leave out, they may come back to it later, but there's actually a training grounds and like a school for warders. So boys come there wanting to be warders, and they're trained. And Aes Sedai, who are raised to the shawl, is what it's called when they are raised to green or yellow or to Aja. They get, depending on the Aja, they get to choose a warder. Or if you're red, you just ignore that whole thing.
We'll talk about them. We'll talk about them red Aja.
But we'll talk about they get to choose a warder. So there is a bond between all the warders because they have fought together. They have been together. They were raised together. They trained together. So they're like brothers in arms. And they all have this one duty, this one purpose. And it's devastating for them to lose an Aes Sedai on all levels, whether they're bonded to them or not. It truly deeply hurts them as a organization, as a group, and you see it.
But then to lose a warder like we did, because Stepin couldn't deal with his grief and he ended up taking his own life. That funeralistic ritual that we saw at the end of the episode, and Lan, let me tell you, I cried during that scene when Lan let out that scream and that.
Most warders to lose their Aes Sedai don't make it. They just don't. And they try their best. They try to bond them with other Aes Sedai. And that's why Lan knew. Lan was like, I need to stay with him until he bonds with Alana, because they know that they can lose him easily.
and he had to be drugged in order for him, because when I watched it the first time, I didn't really connect the fact that Stepin gave Lan the sleeping tea until I rewatched it this time, and I was like, oh, that's what happened. I was like, did y'all drink so much that he just, he passed out? And then when I saw it again today, I was like, oh, he gave him the tea. I don't know how I missed that the first time I watched the episode, but
Stepin's been around long enough to know that that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna watch him until he's bonded again.
Especially Lan, because it seemed like they had a closer bond, as far as the warders go. Like, he was close to the other two. I can't think of their names.
Is it Ivan
and
Maxim or
Maxim,
something like that.
Yes, it seemed like all four of them were kind of close, but it seemed like, if I had to put it in like our relationship terms, I would say that Lan was probably the best friend. He was the one that was ride or die, the one that probably would always have his back, the first one that he could count on. And it was just so sad, because it's like when Lan wakes up and he realizes like he's been drugged, or just something's not right, and he gets up and he sees the tea and he realizes what tea this is. He's like, when he takes off running and he's running in slow motion, I was just looking at the screen like, please don't let him be dead. Please don't let him be dead. And when he sees him and he stops, it's like there's nothing he can do. And you can see his heart drop in his facial expression and in the way his body just kind of sags. And when he drops down to him, and I was like, y'all are killing me with this episode. Y'all are killing me. Y'all are taking my heart and you're ripping it out, and then you're putting it back in, and then you're ripping it out again. Because I really did like Stepin's character, and I was just, I so wanted him to be able to push through and make it, and just wasn't to be. And I was just so sad.
But that whole storyline served a particular purpose, because you see the glances between Lan and Moraine, and even the story about how Stepin became a warder is very similar to what happened to Lan. This is almost the same thing. So that's why he feels such a connection to Stepin, or they feel a connection to each other. They have very similar stories.
Mm-hmm. But there's something interesting about that, the way the conversation goes, and I'm not going to say anything spoilery because I have seen the rest of the season, but there was something that I noticed the first time I watched this episode, even before I knew what happened through the rest of the season, just the different things that happened. And so when Moraine is talking to Alana and they're discussing Stepin and the whole thing, she says something about, I've heard that there's a way that you can sever the bond. When they are going through like different parts of the episode where you see Lan and Moraine kind of connect with each other, like after he has come from the ceremony where Stepin gives Karine's ring back to the fire, and he comes back and Moraine is sitting there in a chair and she's in tears because, again, she feels his emotions just as much as he feels hers. When he comes and he sits with her, and then also in that end scene when they're doing the ritual over Stepin, it's almost like I felt that was the first time I really felt the connection between the two of them, because like I said in earlier episodes, like I know that they're Water and Aes Sedai, but I never really felt like a bond presented to me the way that they portrayed those characters, not like I did with Stepin and Kerine. I felt it in this episode, but the weird thing was at the end when Lan was obviously so overcome with emotion, like to the point where he's screaming. I felt like it's weird because, okay, we already know there's obviously something developing between him and Nynaeve, right? We already, like, I feel that connection. And the way that they were showing the way that they shot the scene was he was looking up as he was having this emotional outburst. But Moraine was there and Nynaeve was there standing behind Moraine. And I felt like Nynaeve's reaction was more in line with what Lan was feeling than Moraine's was. So I don't know if they did that on purpose, but I just felt like right now he has more of a connection with Nynaeve.
It may have been purposeful because the way the bond works, Moraine is going to feel everything that Lan is feeling, and she feels it all the time. So she knows what he's feeling, and it's not the first time, that they've lost a warder, so she knows what that feels like. But Nynaeve's connection to Lan is much more emotional in a way, because she obviously loves him, and he obviously feels the same way, because Stepin says as much earlier.
Right. Stepin is like, dude, I got eyes.
It's been 30 days, and he's like, no, she's checking on you. Nah, dude, she ain't checking on me. She's checking on you, sir. Just to let you know. So right. Her feelings for him are totally different than Moraine's feelings. Like I said before, Moraine to Lan is more like a therapist-patient relationship. And we know that the warder bond is a very tight bond, closer than brother and family. Is as close. But the feelings that Nynaeve has for him is romantic. It's different. It's hard to see. Think about it. She had that explosion of energy to save his life.
Right.
Not anyone else. It was to save his life.
Everybody else just got saved in the process.
Right.
Yeah, but I thought about that too, because even with their, like, the Aes Sedai and warder bond, I feel like is a bond that is there. It's one that is there of consent, but it's also of necessity because of what that relationship is. Like, the warder is there to protect the Aes Sedai at all costs. But with Nynaeve and Lan, that is, I think those emotions and those feelings and the bond that we feel through them, that was something that happened naturally. It wasn't because, oh, he's my warder, or, oh, she's my Aes Sedai, or anything like that. This was something that was a natural progression. And so I wonder, like, because we haven't gotten into the specifics about certain things that are allowed within Aes Sedai and warder relationships or outside of that. Like, I don't know if a warder is allowed to have a family or a lover, wife, whatever, outside of who the Aes Sedai is. So I don't know, like, is that something that will be allowed or whatever, but something tells me that's going to be, I don't know, that's going to be something that it's going to change things, because he's already bonded to Moraine. And I'm sure if she can feel everything that he feels, she has to know what he feels for her. Even though he won't say it out loud, we see it. So I'm sure Moraine sees it and feels it.
He knows that he doesn't have to. He knows, Moraine knows how he feels about Nynaeve. And she's not going to stand in the way of that.
Okay.
But I will go as far as saying that there is a reason that we spent, basically a whole episode on two characters who have nothing to do with our main story. That's Kerine and Stepin. They don't have anything to do with really what's going on. But what their relationship does is it mirrors the relationship between Lan and Moraine. And what have we always said in this show about anything that's been written is that writers like to set you up and make you understand when things happen later why it works and why it's that way. So
nothing's just written to be written. There's always a purpose behind it.
There's very purposeful the way this story is written for certain reasons. And even that throwaway comment that Moraine makes about, I read that there's a way to break the bond, because as far as we know, the bond can't be broken. Remember, there's thousands of years of knowledge that is just gone. That's one of the things that's gone, is how to undo the bond. Because once you do the bond, that's it. I mean, once you do it, that's it. There's no going back. You can forcefully bond people against their will, and you basically become that person's servant. You have to do whatever that person tells you to do, whether you want to or not.
Wow. Okay.
But there is a way to undo it, and Marine has found that it's possible. You know,
Okay.
could it be that she thinks that she's going to be Kerine, that she may die in, and she needs to make sure she can undo it? But we know they can block it, they can turn it off, but that doesn't make it go away.
Okay. Okay. That whole heartbreaking. Okay, let's move on to another section because we got to talk about Child Valda, because this fool shows back up as
This fool.
And
as Perrin and Egwene are traveling.
We see him with his sword for the first time, and I did not pause or still screen to see if there was a heron on his sword, but he is a blade master in the books.
You see, I didn't think to do that, but now that you mention that, yeah.
I know, right?
See, I already didn't like him. Yeah, he's a bit of a pain in the patootie, as they would say.
That's an understatement.
That
is an understatement. Like, so we run into him and the white cloaks again as Perrin and Egwene are traveling with the Tinkers. And so he sees Perrin and Egwene and he's like, those two there. And of course they take off running, which I guess I felt like they didn't have to run, because they could have easily have told him that they got separated from the rest on the road and they happened to find the Tinkers, you know, trying to get back, trying to reunite with their people or whatever. They could have done that. And I think it would have made sense. You don't think so?
I don't think that would have worked. No, I don't think that would have worked.
He doesn't believe in coincidence.
He told them that he's going to remember their faces. And he doesn't, exactly like Dan said, he doesn't believe in coincidences.
And I understand him remembering the faces, but he could have been like, okay, so you were traveling with another group. How did you end up here? And they could have said, well, we were attacked and we got separated and we came across them. They helped us.
He's not falling for the banana in the tailpipe. That's
he doesn't believe in coincidences. He's a child of light and a child of destiny. He does not believe in coincidences.
This would have happened. The whole thing would have happened anyway. If they would have run, if they would have stayed still, he still would have taken them.
If anything, it confirmed his suspicions. If anything. Oh, the will has brought them right back to me. I should have taken care of it the first time.
Yep.
Right. But
because you saw how he even was like, I know you can channel. Even if you aren't Aes Sedai, I know you can. So I don't even know why you're lying to me. Like, he just went ahead and just assumed, yeah, you're lying. And there's a reason that you came back to me again, because maybe I should have taken care of it before.
Well, see, that what I'm thinking is like, there's a reason. Like, I mean, he wouldn't have believed anything that she said anyway. It's like she's telling him, I can't channel. She's like, you're lying. He's like, well, okay, we're gonna prove it. So he was going to kill her to prove himself either right or wrong. If something happens and she channeled, then cool, I was right. I'm still going to kill you. But even if she doesn't, he's like, oh, I killed her. She can't channel. Oh well, that's fine.
Yeah. What did he say?
It doesn't matter.
What did she say? You're a child of light. You can't kill an innocent girl who hasn't done anything wrong. He's like,
what makes you think I'm a man that sticks to my oaths? I was like, well, at least he's not shady about it. At least he's like, oh yeah, bitch, I took that oath, but that don't mean I'm gonna follow it. I was like, oh yeah, y'all got some problems.
Yeah, and he's worse. It's almost like he's worse than Father Cardin. He just feels like nasty and just grimy and just.
He hates women. He hates women.
He doesn't hate women. He hates women that channel.
The way that he treated her, because even if she was a woman who doesn't channel, if he had gone through everything and killed her and she never channeled or anything, like Mike said, he would have been like, oh, well, I'm sorry. He would have done that with no regret. He would have done it with no qualms. He hates women. He's kind of, I think he hates women in the same way Leandrin hates men.
I agree with Hanako on this one.
No, Leandrin says she doesn't hate men. She doesn't. I guess I'm trying. If I'm coming from a perspective of not having read the books, yes, it's easy to think that Leandrin and Rez hate men, and that Valda hates women. That's not necessarily true. He hates women that can channel, and Leandrin hates men that can channel. They believe they should be wiped out from existence. They don't have trouble with, like, he didn't just grab all the women from the Tinkers and accuse them of being channelers and kill them.
No, he just hit them in the face and abused them and had his people beat them.
He beat them all, not just the women. It wasn't just the women. Because he has a relationship with the woman in the book. So he doesn't not like women. It's women who can channel RA. Actually, for him, anyone that can channel is a problem. It's just that he doesn't have to worry about men that can channel because someone else takes care of that.
Okay.
So if the women, because he really doesn't like Aes Sedai, because they are walking amongst us like gods among people, and that's blasphemy to the creator. It's easy to say he hates women, but it's more nuanced than that.
Yes.
And they only treated her that way because he's assuming that she can channel. So they treat her like she can because he's already made his determination that she can channel.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess him sticking a blade to Perrin and her still not being able to channel, the first time before he left out the tent. I don't know. I mean, if I feel like if I'm torturing somebody to get a response and I don't get that response, then maybe there's a chance she's telling the truth.
No, he knows she's refusing to channel. He doesn't. Right. He's already figured that the creator has brought her back to him for a reason. So he has determined in his mind there's a reason he's killed 7 Aes Sedai. I mean, you have to think about some of those rings. Some of those Aes Sedai had warders. They had to go to those warders to get to those Aes Sedai.
Yeah.
Right.
So when he has a gut feeling, he's gonna go with it, and he feels like she can channel. So everything he's doing, and he knows that she's going to save Perrin, and she's gonna channel. So he's just giving her time to figure out how she's gonna do it.
Right.
Little does he know that he's bringing shit out in Perrin that was dormant. Like
that was something you would prepare for.
Oh my god!
Because he turned around and looked. He was like, "What are you?" As soon as I saw his eyes, when I saw his eyes when he first started cutting, I was like, "Oh shit, it's on." Wolfpack is on the motherfucker. When you can hear him in the background. What I really need to see this scene from the outside, where everyone else is walking around, and all of a sudden wolves start howling all around them, and they're like, "What the fuck's going on?" Like, for real, like, I need to see that. Then to see the wolves like standing like above them, like in a pack, looking down on them, like that shit I need to see. But
wolves wouldn't do that. They would be, by the time you realize that there was a wolf near you, you're dead, because they stalk.
That's pretty much
you would hear the
way it was
way off in the distance howling, and the rest of them are sneaking up on you, getting ready to pounce. So
it was so funny though, because when Perrin and Egwene were able to escape from the tent and they were running through, and they came across that, I guess that was the leader of the wolf pack, and he was just sitting there, and Perrin was like, "He won't hurt us," and Egwene is like, "How do you know?" I feel like that wolf was fussing at him like, "You get your ass on, and don't you come back this way." And Donna, I feel like the wolf was fussing at him.
He was looking at him like, how'd you get caught? Like, what the fuck? You a wolf? You ain't a dog. You a wolf, man. You're supposed to be better than this. Let me go kill these people, man. Don't be fucking up again, man.
Right? Like, we led you to safety the first time. We ain't gonna keep doing this. But I think Egwene should have aimed the knife in his neck instead of his shoulder, because I have a feeling he's not dead. He'll be back. He's coming back. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when she left the tent, I realized he was still twitching and squirming around on the floor, so he's not dead.
Yeah, because she stuck the dagger in his shoulder. I'm like, no, you should have angled that a little bit more, maybe another 20 or 30 degrees. Yep. But that is a character.
He has a bigger role to play.
That dude is despicable as fuck. I was like, when I saw him show up in this episode, I was like, oh, it's about to be some shit. That dude.
But I want to point out something here. When everything went down, and when they had the thing happen inside the tent, and he was like, "What are you?" And I'm like, "Okay, you say you've been around. You mean to tell me you've never heard any rumor of any type of shape-shifting, possibly possible thing in men? You're just going to be focusing on old girl." Yeah, I found that kind of fishy. I just did.
No, he doesn't really concern himself with men that can channel. So if a man has shown something weird or strange, they're pretty much either killed by whatever townspeople before they mature, or the Aes Sedai find them and they're stilled, and then they kill themselves anyway. Or a lot of wilders, especially men, when they start channeling, if they don't go insane, they burn themselves out and die anyway. So
what did you call him? A wilder? Is that wilder. What the term is? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wilder.
So if you're being sanctimonious, wearing the white robe and all that other crap, so you're saying that you just blindly go through life saying, they're men, they're no big deal, and just go about no. See,
this is why I feel like he hates women.
Yes, exactly. That's
what
I'm
saying. They know that the Aes Sedai, see the white cloaks try to steer as far away from Aes Sedai. They don't like confrontation with Aes Sedai. He's pretty much the only one that kind of likes that. And that's why the garrison that he's with, they stay around Tar Valon in case, just in case they come across Aes Sedai, which is what he's done.
But that would I feel
his
like
purpose. It sounds like he is targeting women who can channel.
He's being a
but he knows that the Aes Sedai target men who can channel. So why do double work?
But on that note, though, if you hear that there are men who can channel, or that there are men who can shapeshift, or whatever the case is, because I don't know if in this world shape-shifting has to do with the one power. That could be something different. I don't know. But you would think that if his goal is to get rid of the Aes Sedai, and he knows the Aes Sedai will go after the men who can channel, you would think that he would deduce, oh, well, if I hear about this, man in this village who can channel, instead of ignoring it, I'm going to go towards him, because chances are an Aes Sedai will go towards him too, and then I could just kill two birds with one stone.
Remember, he's not the commander general. He's not the one in charge. He's just an inquisitor. So he can't dictate to the general where they go.
He did in the last the 2 episodes ago.
But the general also didn't let him mess with Moraine either. So they've had that dance before.
Okay.
So he's not just gonna let him willy-nilly just. And secondly, would you want to be in the midst of a confrontation between an insane male channeler and 7 or 8 Aes Sedai sent there to stop him? Would you even want to be anywhere near that?
No, but there's a lot of things that he does that I wouldn't do. So I can't.
Well, that's on the individual level. He knew about the 8 Aes Sedai that was sent out from the White Tower, and right now they're trying to figure out what those Aes Sedai are doing. That's why he's hunting them out, because they're easy targets. There are a whole bunch of Aes Sedai walking around, but he knows that there are some that have a specific mission, and he knows that he can find them. but the commander general is not just going to let him. That's not how the white cloaks work.
Okay.
And also, they can't. Technically, they're not supposed to have any confrontation with the Aes Sedai, because there are a lot of kingdoms who have Aes Sedai as advisors, and some kings are even married to them. They're in the court. You don't want to create a situation where all of a sudden all the kingdoms join together because you are a pest, which actually happened in the books. But you don't want to be like, oh my God, all the 8, 9, 10 kingdoms have decided that we are a problem and they're gonna come and wipe us out because we're killing Aes Sedai, and Aes Sedai are very important to their society.
Anthony, is somebody we haven't seen yet who somebody meets somebody? Aren't they Aes Sedai in a royalty that we haven't seen yet that showed up in book 1? They are the Aes Sedai or not? Just nod your head.
There are some Aes Sedai who are, either if you're a woman they can channel, you go to the White Tower.
That's
regardless of your station.
That's
if you're a noble woman, a queen, a princess, anybody, if you are a woman that can channel, they send you to the tower to be trained. If you are in the court or part of a court, they have a specific regimen for you to follow to become an advisor to that person, because you're going to be the Aes Sedai's eyes and ears in that situation. That's how the Aes Sedai have manipulated the kingdoms. It's very possible that the Aes Sedai in the tower are not aware of the number of Aes Sedai that Valda has killed, because if they were aware that he had killed them, he would have a problem.
Okay.
See what you're saying. Okay.
Okay. And I guess the other thing too is that we only know, for those of us who are only watching the show who don't have any of the book background and knowledge, we don't have a lot of information about who the White Cloaks are and what they do and how they function. So I guess that's a little bit of my confusion, because the way that I see it, just from the 2 times we've seen the White Cloaks show up thus far, Valda seems like he has a little more power than a typical, I guess, Inquisitor, because like you said, when they were with the General Commander, he was like, oh, okay, so you guys are going to go there because you have your own mission, but we have our own thing to do, so we're going to go here. And the General Commander just let him go. So I was like, I feel like it's one of those things where, you see it in other shows where, you have the king and then you have the vizier, or you have his advisor, and the advisor is the one who actually has more power, or seemingly has more power than the actual person on top. So that's kind of the vibe I got.
He has a lot of leeway.
Okay.
And then, based on what his agenda is, what his charge is as an Inquisitor.
Okay.
So he can do what he wants, and the general can take all the other men and leave him by himself if he wants to.
Okay.
Like, oh, we know what you want to do that? Fine. Go ahead and do that. So, of course, Valda is going to go along with him because he needs the soldiers. You understand what I'm saying? But there's a point where if the commander general sees that whatever they're doing doesn't serve any purpose, he's going to be like, dude, we're done here.
Okay.
You can stay if you want, but we're going to pack up camp and we're going somewhere else.
Okay. Okay.
And Valda is not going to leave that, but he's going to give him a lot of leeway because he has a lot of leeway as an Inquisitor, and also being a Blade Master. You can't really challenge him because he's going to kill you if you do.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Valda has no interest in becoming. Well, right now he doesn't have any interest in becoming a captain commander, but he can if he wants to. He can challenge him if he wants to, but he hasn't, because he has a different agenda. And like I said, the White Cloaks really do not want a confrontation straight up with the Aes Sedai, because the Aes Sedai, in and of themselves, Tar Valon is a very, very powerful place. Like I said, we haven't seen the academy where they train the warders. There might be hundreds of men there who are just as good a fighter, they are just as good a fighter as anyone in a White Cloak.
Yeah, I would assume so, because you're training to protect the Aes Sedai.
Right,
So you can't be a subpar fighter and be like,
No.
oh, I'm gonna be her warder.
You can't.
No.
And if you are subpar, you stay there until you are not subpar anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like I said, you have Aes Sedai in specific places among the kingdoms that have armies at their command.
Okay.
So right now, the White Cloaks, like this quasi-military religious organization that people just kind of like, the Red Cloaks in Cursed. They have a little bit of autonomy as long as they don't disturb too much. They're a fanatical organization and no one really wants to bother with them, and they're going around, they're doing their thing. As long as they ain't fucking up the general order of things, it's all good. But if they knew that Valda was intentionally killing Aes Sedai, that particular regiment would have a problem.
Okay. So the other question I have, just so I can be clear, when they're in the tent and he comes back, he tortures Perrin a little bit. He, makes some cuts on his back and basically tells Egwene, okay, you can either channel for me or I kill him. And what is it that he says? He says, if you channel, then I'll let you go. I'll kill him and then let you go. But if you don't channel, I'll kill you and let him go. So at this point, Egwene is like, oh no, I'm not gonna let Perrin die. But then Perrin talks about how he deserves it. And this is when he finally comes clean to Egwene about what happened with Layla. He feels like it was his fault. This is what he deserves. He deserves to die, and Egwene deserves to live. And he doesn't want her risking, her life by channeling to save him, because he doesn't feel like he deserves it. And when Valda comes back into the tent right after all of this happens, Egwene looks at him and she tells him, she was like, what happened was not your fault. You don't deserve this. And one day you will believe it. She was like, I'm sure of it. One day you will believe you don't deserve this. And at that point, I think Perrin realized that, okay, she's about to channel. No, don't do it. So she does channel a little bit, and then she throws this little fireball at Valda, and it just kind of poof. And he's like child,
it was like a snowball. Like she was like,
it wasn't even like a snowball. It was like she threw a big cotton ball at him and it just bounced off of him. And he was like, child, it'll take more than that to kill me. But then as he's talking to her, you see her looking at Perrin, and his binds on his arms are starting to catch fire and burn off. She was the one that was doing that, right? Not Perrin.
Yeah, she was distracting him. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I was like, okay, so is that what happened? Like she did that to distract him so she could really work okay. I was trying to figure out, but then I was like, one of the reasons why Perrin is on this trip is because he might be one of the people that could be the dragon, at least according to Moraine. So I was like, okay, so is Perrin also channeling? Is he a shifter and a channeler? So I was trying to figure that out. And then when I watched it again, I said, no, I think she was the one that did that, but I wanted to be sure.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me stop all y'all here. Let's stop using the word shifter.
Well, whatever he may be.
Right. Let's not
whatever he may be. Yellow eyes. I can call him Azazel, the demon, supernatural, but the yellow eyes.
That's very close to
the wolf, man,
in the book. Golden eyes.
So like I said, he breaks free. And, he's growling at this point. His eyes are golden. Valda is turning around looking at him like, what the hell did I just get myself into? And as he's distracted.
Is it me or did Perrin grow 2 feet?
Dude, I wondered that too, because he looked like.
He was starting to transform is what he was doing. You think
that's what he was doing?
I think he was beginning to transform because, he did get bigger and he got wider too. And they've
been very inconsistent with his size, because he and Aram were about the same size when they were walking, but then earlier he was towering over Matt, and he and Rand are about the same size, and Rand is 6'5".
Oh yeah, that's right.
So
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a mistake, but yeah, they did make him seem tiring. But remember, Egwene is really short,
Yeah, she is,
and
and
Valda
Varda is
is
not
not
that.
very. He's not very tall
Yeah,
at all. Either.
But yeah, when Perrin stood up, Varda did have to kind of look up, like, "Oh shit, what are you?"
Light protects me, and I ain't gonna protect you from that, son. I don't know
Nope.
about all that.
Light protect me.
And then while he was distracted by Perrin, that's when Egwene sticks the blade in his shoulder. And like I said, I think she should have changed that angle up a little bit.
No,
but
she should have just flipped it across.
I don't know if I feel like Egwene has that in her. Like, to
She
like
probably ain't never
purposefully,
picked a knife up in her life.
probably didn't. Like, yeah. But if she would have accidentally stabbed him in the neck instead of the shoulder, that could have just been nerves or whatever. But for her to actually like go and like slice him across the neck, I don't think she has that in her yet. She may later on, but now I was just
saying she should have. I didn't think. I mean, you're probably right. She probably doesn't have that. It's not in her makeup to do that. But I just saying.
Right now, she was in flight mode.
Mm-hmm.
She's trying to get
she's
there.
like, let's get the fuck on.
Right, like let's get out of here. But okay, let's move to Mat and Rand. Because when I tell y'all, Mat is looking a little bit rough around the edges. That Joker looks horrible.
Oh, did y'all participate in the Where's Waldo for Patton Fane this week? Patton Fane was in a couple of scenes in the background.
I think I only saw him in one scene. I think I saw him he was in two?
He was in two.
Because he was in Tar Valon, right?
Yes. He was in I wrote the timestamp down, 9:39 when they first got there.
You paused it?
I did not freeze frame.
He just wrote down the times.
I wrote down the timestamp because I knew y'all were going to say something about freeze frame, and I wanted to make sure that I did not freeze frame. And in 2027, when Mat and Perrin were sitting on the balcony, he was down on a chair looking up.
I did not notice him in that second one.
Yeah.
I think I saw him in the first one. Patton Fane, Patton Fane, the merchant from the first episode.
No, I missed that too. Yeah.
Because I'm trying to think.
He's stalking them.
Okay, yeah. So I did not notice him the second time. I thought I saw him the first time, but I wasn't quite sure. I was like, is that the dude from the first episode? But okay. But yeah, so Mat and Rand, they finally make it to Tar Valon. And Mat, of course, like I said, he's struggling at this point. But you can see.
Okay. Yeah. That's crazy. Like, he just looked up, he was like, and walked off. I was like, what the fuck?
But Mat and Rand didn't see him though, did they?
Okay. No, they didn't see him.
Okay. But
that's crazy.
Mat, you can tell Mat is struggling because there's a little bit of Mat still there. You can see it when they're talking on the balcony and when he's talking to Rand. Like, it's one of the only times he's actually civil to Rand in this episode. And you can see like Rand is very worried. He's trying to keep an eye on him, but Mat, I guess whatever is going on with this blade and the darkness that's taking over him is really getting to him because he is like such an asshole for most of this episode. But while they're there in the city, they find a room, they get rest, and as the Aes Sedai are returning to the city, that's when they go and they're sitting on this balcony and they're looking at the parade of the Aes Sedai coming in, and they have Logain in the cage, and that is his name, right? Logain. Okay.
Logain.
So yes. Mm-hmm. So when he's coming down the street, it looks like he looks up at Mat and he's focused on Mat and he starts laughing like uncontrollably, like, oh, there you are, whatever. But then when you look at Mat and he's looking down at Logain, Logain hasn't changed positions. So was that just a figment of Matt's imagination, or did that dude really sense the darkness in Matt? Like, I was confused because I feel like it could have been either way.
I think it's a little both. I think that he probably, I mean, whatever's still in Logain did sense him, but I think it's more so Matt seeing the darkness inside him and the darkness recognizing this is like darkness recognizes darkness, and he was just, and he saw the darkness laughing, but then we looked at Rand and looked back, there was nothing going on. So it's like they, it's just like real recognize real, darkness recognize darkness. So
I think that was in his head.
Okay.
Yeah, that I think like Mike, I think he sensed a little bit of he sensed a little bit of his craziness that he had, and then that was through the filter of the darkness that's in him.
Okay.
Otherwise, Logain is sitting there chilling. He's in his own world right now.
I don't even know if he's chilling. I think he's just kind of like,
yeah, he
seems like a shell of his former self.
He's lost. Remember, I told you, when you are stilled and you still can sense, it's like you can sense it and feel it, but you can't touch it. And they have such an enormous amount of loss from that, that part of themselves.
It's almost similar to the way Stepin was with Kerine.
Yes.
But so in this episode, we also meet an Ogier for the first time. That big dude, I'm telling you, that character was very, I want to say off-putting. He wasn't off-putting. He was just strange.
He wasn't as awesome as he was in the books. In the books, he's better. Okay.
It kind of seems like he has a little touch of Asperger's. Like he just kind of over explains things, and he just keeps talking and talking and talking. Like when he brought Nynaeve from the castle, he was like, "Yeah, her braid is very." He started talking about her braid and stuff. I was like, he's like really like just talking to be talking.
Yeah.
But I loved him. I thought he was awesome. It's like Rand drew his sword and he laughed at him. I was like, "You're no threat." He was like, "You humans always go to swords."
And then he started talking about the first time I showed up in Tar Valon, and they came after me and they ran me through the town and blah, and like, dude.
I was like, I was starting to be slightly annoyed.
Starting to.
Best thing ever.
They all have their knives, waving their knives at me, just like you are.
It's like he doesn't quite get that, because he looks and he's so different that he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with it. And they're like, we've never seen an Ogier before, right? So it's so cute. In the books, he's actually like 4 feet taller, but he's so cool. He's literally my favorite character.
Yeah. Usually most people don't really mess with Ogier. They're very proud, very strong, very cultured race. No one really messes with them like that.
His conversation was just so funny, because when he was talking to Rand, Rand picked up a book, and the guy said, he said, "Why would the adventures of such and such make you sad?" And he said, "Oh, it's not that. I knew a girl who used to read this book all the time, and she actually thought that she was Fane reincarnated," talking about the character. And he said, "Where is this girl now? Or is she a woman? You humans age so fast."
Awesome.
I don't know what it was about the way he said that line. It was just so funny to me.
If Stop and Smell the Roses was a character, it would be Loyal.
Okay. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, and like you said, he does bring Nynaeve to Rand and Matt, because Nynaeve is in the castle, or she's in Tar Valon. Is that considered a castle? Like tower?
Tar
Valon,
or
I mean the White
Tower is a fortress, basically.
Okay, so she's exploring on her own. Even though Moraine told her to sit still, but we already know Nynaeve is not going to listen to other people. Nynaeve is very strong-willed. She's going to do what she wants to do. And Leandrin comes to her, and she questions her, and then she does this weird thing. She was like, but you might want to explore. If you go through these doors, it'll take you to the gardens, and the persimmons are in season. I was like, what the hell does this have to do with anything? And then once in the next scene, when Loyal brings Nynaeve to Rand and Matt, I was like, oh, she was being sneaky. She did that on purpose. Or did I read that wrong? Like, she was basically telling Nynaeve, yeah, go explore. There might be something here for you to find. Is that what she did? Or did it just happen to be coincidence?
I don't know. It could be coincidence.
You're a liar. You're a liar.
Okay, it's not coincidence. We got it. Cool. Thanks.
But yeah, so we have 3 of our 5 Two Rivers people reunited. But Nynaeve in this scene is like when she and Rand see each other, and then she sees Matt, and she determines that something is not quite right with Matt. When they're outside and he's talking about not having seen Egwene and Perrin for over a month, and they're just kind of reconnecting. That story that she tells about Egwene was so sad but so sweet. But also I was like, oh, okay, so Egwene has just always been a kick-ass person. Like, she had a disease or she had a fever that literally, and this sounds so freaking painful, that literally causes your body to try to break itself. And she said Egwene was 10 years old when this happened, and she sat through the night and her parents were basically told that she would probably die. And she said her legs were breaking backwards on themselves and her arms. I'm like, who came up with this kind of disease, and what the fuck was wrong with him to come up with something like this? Oh, that's horrible. But, we learn about her strength of character then. And I'm guessing that's going to come in handy for all this stuff that's about to happen, especially her being able to put a knife into Child Valda. But I noticed that she did not mention to Rand about her channeling. Rand said something to her about, I think Matt can channel, but she never says anything to him about the fact that she can. I found that very interesting.
Well, the other interesting was, did you see him channel? No. You just assuming he is. So,
right. But he says, but he's not himself. And I mean, looking at the way Matt is, like, it's obvious something is wrong. It's obvious something not of this world is happening to him. That's not just, I'm tired because we haven't had a bed to sleep in for a month and we've been walking. Rand has too, and Rand has had no issues as far as we've been able to see. So
yeah, but I guess them being from the Two Rivers and not really knowing, in order to start the madness, you actually have to touch the source. Like, the fact that you can channel does not make you insane. It's when you start channeling, and the more you do it, the more crazy you become.
Okay.
So I have a question.
But okay, go ahead.
Is Two Rivers like the Xavier School for the Gifted? Like, is everybody there got something with them? Like everybody has like some kind of little hidden thing with them. Like,
remember the Two Rivers is ancient Manetheren. That was a very powerful empire full of very powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
So
and these are their descendants.
Basically, it's a Tigris Euphrates of magic.
Not necessarily, but yeah, you can think of it that way. Just it was the one empire, it was the one kingdom that the Dark One needed to get rid of during the Charlotte Wars because they were going to be a problem.
And that's the kingdom where the queen touched the one source and used it so much that she burned herself out, correct?
She burned the entire Charlotte and the entire force, the entire army. Right. She ended the Trolloc Wars herself.
And they are
she
the
was the most
descendants
powerful
of the
Aes Sedai.
children. They are the
Yes.
descendants of the children that went into the hills to hide.
Yes.
Okay.
And all the
Okay.
people they had scattered and was refugees from Netherland, they all came back. And,
Okay.
And that's
And rebuilt.
the Two Rivers and Emmons
Okay.
Field and all that stuff. And rebuilt. But these are their descendants.
Okay.
You didn't talk about the first thing Loyal said to Rand. He was like, "Oh, you're an Aielman. I've never met an Aielman before."
I was going to mention that.
But before you get to that,
Rand kept saying, "I'm not an Aielman. I'm not an Aielman." I'm like, okay, so that kind of makes me wonder, like, so Rand might not be who Rand thinks he is.
Probably not.
Right?
Okay, go ahead.
I don't think Rand's from the Two Rivers.
Yeah.
Like Loyal said, it's very rare you find that physical feature outside of Aiel Waste. So,
right.
Okay. An Aielman from the Two Rivers who says he's not an Aielman. That's interesting.
Right. Like, okay, Dad, you got some explaining to do. I mean, but if you think about it, maybe that's one of the reasons why Rand's father lived so far from the town.
Probably.
You know, now that I think about it, I mean, yeah, you know, live so far from the rest of them. Like they went into town, and you know, obviously Rand grew up around, you know, Matt and Kerine and them. But as far as them living there, you know, it was like what did they say? Like almost a 2-week walk from the town to where they actually lived in the mountains. So maybe that's one of the reasons why they stayed so far. Maybe Rand is not who I don't know yet.
I may not go as far as say that because Tam was from the Two Rivers, and he was raised as a goat sheep herder.
Okay.
So he went off to war, and when he was done with it, he came back to the place that he knew.
Okay.
So, and married a woman from the Two Rivers. So.
Okay. But maybe Rand is not his. Maybe Rand belongs.
I didn't say any of that, but what I did want to say.
No, I'm going by what Loyal said, because I mean,
think about it. The people from the Two Rivers when they were scattered after the Trolloc Wars, and you know, we know for the most part the Two Rivers is sort of a closed off area. No one really goes down there because there really isn't anything there but wool. That's the only thing they kind of exchange out of the Two Rivers. It still is possible that we've seen Aielmen that far south. You know, we saw one that was down, you know, when they were in the town that they went to with the woman that tried to kill them.
Well, I guess I need to understand fully what an Aielman is, because him saying it doesn't tell me what it is. It just makes me think that, okay, so obviously Rand comes from a different people, or he thinks that Rand comes from a different people. But I don't know, as a non-book reader, I don't know what an Aielman is, because that's the first time it's being used.
Well, no, we got it from Tom and Matt when the guy that was in the cage that Matt was going to rob.
Oh, that's right. You're right. Okay.
I think they're a blend of what we would consider Irish Scot with the red hair and the tartums and all that, which brings in a different type of magic. Because one of the books I'm reading, right? I'm sorry.
I was thinking they were kind of like Vikings, like, you know,
kind of, yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Althor, like he's like Eric the Red.
Because
not even close.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not thinking about as far as like region or whatever, but I was just wondering about the term. But now that you mentioned the guy in the cage, that does jog my memory that he was one of those. So yeah,
because when he talked about how tall he was, he said the red hair. Remember, the writers always give you a little bit of stuff before you actually see the stuff.
Right.
Like, and you know, you don't see him this far south, and you know, and if you see a veiled one, that's when you got to be concerned, not when they're unveiled.
Right.
So we got a little bit of that. Okay. They're from the Aiel Waste, which is on the other side of the spine, which is a mountain range, which is a desolate place.
Oh, wait.
They're very much like the Freeman.
Wait, so you just mentioned that. Does that tie into when they approached Tar Valon and Rand saw the mountain in the background? He was like, I think I've seen that mountain before.
Yeah.
Not because of the spine. No. Dragon Mount is a different thing.
Oh, is that what that mountain is called?
Yeah, it's like a mountain in the middle of nowhere. It's
just
a mountain.
Okay.
Out there by itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I guess that's one of those things that may have some more light shed on it in future episodes, because this is what episode 5 that we're talking about. Yeah.
Remember when I posted to you guys that they put some background stories up on Amazon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So one of the features that they posted was posted after this episode. I mean, it's up there, it's available. You can watch it. But one of them actually talks about the breaking of the world and where Dragon Mount came from.
Okay. So I'll give that a look. But yeah, I was just
they're very short. They're like 3-4 minutes. They're very short.
Okay. But yeah, I was gonna mention that whole thing because I was like, okay, so is Rand not who we think he is? Which probably would tie into the whole Dragon Reborn theory, and that might, I don't know, that might make it lean more towards it being Rand or something like that. I don't know.
And also the book he pulled in Loyal's library, the first book he pulled, when he opened it, there was a dragon in there, and it was called the Carathian Cycle, which they haven't really talked about. Well, they have talked about it, but they haven't called it the Carathian Cycle.
Okay.
Which is the dragon being reborn.
Okay. And
that was before he picked up the book about the Jane Farstrider.
Right. Okay. But
the other thing I wanted to mention was in the last episode I talked about how in the book Nynaeve, as she was growing up, she was using the one power to heal people, sort of with and without kind of knowing it. Remember, she said she held Egwene's hand during that time.
Yeah. And so, she was talking about how Nynaeve's, how Egwene's fever broke the next morning.
So it's possible that she could have stayed with her the whole night.
And she probably healed her and didn't realize that she was
possible.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay.
Knowing how the type of power she has. Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing now what we know about her, she would have been about 15 at the time.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility, given that now she literally keeps people from dying and heal them. And okay.
And that would have been the age around when her powers would have started to mature if she had been using them.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would have thought, Egwene, maybe she was coming into her powers and she was like almost burning herself out. But then I found out that is an actual thing. The breakbone fever is an actual thing. Rarely fatal, but it is a thing. It's excruciatingly painful.
I would imagine so.
I would think so.
I would imagine so. If your bones are like literally breaking themselves backwards, yeah, I imagine it would be painful. But there was another question I was about to ask. Okay, so I know we talked about how a lot of what happens in this show is actually not in the books. Is that the same for this episode? Like everything that we saw with Stepin and Kerine, is none of that was in the books?
No.
Wow. Okay. Because I was sitting here like, okay, so maybe which I'm planning on doing at some point anyway, I should go read the book and maybe that'll help me understand, blah, blah, blah. But if none of this was in the book,
it'll help you understand. But like I said, they're getting across the same ideas and putting people in the same place they would be. They're just doing it in a different way.
Okay.
Like Tom would still be with them. And they would have met Loyal earlier, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Let's see. Do we have anything else? What did we not touch on anything? Let's see. We talked about Rand and Matt. We talked about Egwene and Perrin. We talked about Stepin and Kerine and Lan and Moraine and Nynaeve. I think we touched everything, didn't we?
Yeah. And the other thing,
Yep.
Valda, I forget what her name was, the leader of the Tinkers.
Isla.
Yeah.
Isla, Perrin was telling Arm he's going to kill them all, and he's like, God, he wouldn't dare kill a Tuathawan. And that's pretty much the same sentiment earlier. Is the kingdoms know the Tuathawan, they're very peaceful and they're really not to be touched. So you can bully them and push them around, but if you kill any of them, you're going to be in trouble with the kingdoms.
Okay.
So that's one of those things, because they really don't bother anything. But again, there's knowledge that has been lost over the thousands of years. There's a reason that they're not to be touched.
Okay.
In that way.
Okay. But we probably won't find that out in this season. Okay.
Or you probably won't even find out next season either, depending on how fast. No, we're talking like season 3, 4. We're talking about towards the end of the series.
Okay. So I did see something today. I didn't get a chance to look at it, but apparently they have been renewed up through season 3 and possibly season 4.
Yep.
Okay.
Because it was the biggest thing on Amazon Prime this past year, for that mistake.
Yeah. I did see that post, that it was like one of the biggest streaming premieres across in 2021. Yeah. Across all.
The only thing that came in close, and it wasn't even a close second, was Expanse, the finale. And of course Jack Reacher, which came out this past week. So yeah, it was the only thing that'll be bigger might be the Lord of the Rings series. Might be.
Yeah, and they've started doing promotion on that as well. Yeah. So okay.
Oh, we didn't talk about Moraine and Alana's conversation.
Yeah, let's talk about that conversation.
I'm tired of Moraine already. I'm only on episode 6. I'm sorry, I am.
I have to agree with Lori. Moraine is not my favorite person on this show. But yeah, her conversation with Alana, so I don't know. I kind of get the feeling that most of the Aes Sedai do not like the Amyrlin seat. Is that a accurate interpretation of that conversation?
That would be a fairly accurate. I wouldn't say like, but they may not like her, but they all kind of respect her and her power.
But she was talking about having Moraine go against her, or I guess she was saying something about
her. She's the only one strong enough to do it.
Yeah. Because she told Moraine, she said something about you'll have 2 enemies in this tower. I'm assuming the other one she's talking about is Leandrin, because that's
Leandrin doesn't like anybody. It's like everybody's Leandrin. It's like she's just like pessimistic about everything. It's like,
I do not like her character.
It's like every time I bet every time she takes a step, she hates her shoes. Like she hates everything. Like
I want to know what her deal is.
She hinted at it. She's like, when she said what men do to little girls who they're afraid, so they might be more powerful than them.
Yeah, and I understand that as far as why she may have a dislike towards men, or whatever her case is. But what does it have to do with the other women? Like,
she
why
wants them all to go along with what she wants.
Okay.
And if you don't, then you're in my way. You're a problem.
Right. And apparently she's starting to win over some of the Aes Sedai. I think that was one of the things that Alana mentioned.
Yeah.
That she's starting to win over some of their sisters to her side.
Even in other Ajas.
Yeah. So, but
the one thing they're not really focusing on is the politics of the White Tower. It can be pretty vicious. To become the Amyrlin seat, you have to accrue a lot of favors and spend a lot of favors, because it it takes a lot of political maneuvering to become the Armelin seat.
And just for clarification, the Armelin seat, that's the person who leads the Aes Sedai, or the woman who leads the Aes Sedai, correct?
Yes, the woman, and it's actually what the seat is called. Like,
yeah,
the seat's the Amelin seat, and
seat.
she's the Amelin seat.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that I
now
don't know,
leading the Aes Sedai might be debatable, but she's the quote unquote the one elected in the position.
Now, does that mean that she's the most powerful Aes Sedai?
No.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with her power.
Power.
I mean, she's the best maneuverer.
Power helps.
Okay.
But typically the most powerful Aes Sedai doesn't necessarily want to be Armelin's seat. Because remember, the queen in Manetheren was the most powerful Aes Sedai at the time. And the jealousy of the current Armelin seat at that time was the reason why they never got any help, because she was jealous of her power.
Okay.
So being the most powerful doesn't necessarily mean you want to be Armelin seat, because it is a headache. There are reasons why Sanche went after the Armelin seat, but we won't really get into that until later.
Okay.
There are reasons.
Okay. So what I guess the part about the conversation with a lot of that kind of confused me is, she's sitting here making this suggestion to Moiraine that, hey, you can challenge her, you can actually be the Armelin seat. And Moiraine says it plainly, I have no designs on the seat. But they've spent so much of the past few episodes talking about how Moiraine is, one, she's always away from the tower, she's never there. And then two, I get the feeling that Moiraine is not very well liked amongst the Aes Sedai. So
it's like she's a lone wolf. She's an outsider. She's like really doesn't. It's like when they were riding to the tower, he was like, "See, how's it feel to be home?" She was like, "These boots are my home. This cloak is my home."
Right.
Like, she doesn't really consider the White Tower or anything in it home or comforting to her. Like, she has no shit. Like, I believe her when she says she has no intention of leading anybody. She really is like, she wants to follow her own path. That's why even in the first episode, when they killed the one guy and her and Lan were standing on the cliff looking over them, and she said, yeah, it's not him. They're fucking up again. Come on, we gotta go this way. It's like she doesn't believe that they know what. I don't think she has faith in them actually finding the next dragon. Like, she has no faith in them doing it. So she's like, I'm not gonna be around y'all because y'all don't know what you're doing. I think I can find him better on my own with my water than all of y'all riding around just killing dudes just because they're displaying powers. Like, that's basically all y'all doing. I want to actually find who we need to find, as opposed to you just going around killing guys willy-nilly. So y'all go do that.
They're not killing them, they're gentling them.
Okay, gentling them, just gentling them. But so she's like, y'all go do that. I'll go do what I want to do. And that probably rubs them the wrong way, because they're like, well, we need everybody to work together. She's like, fuck y'all. No, I'm not doing that. I know. I think that I can find them better on my own than tailing around with you.
Okay, so first, the in general, the rest, the Ajas don't really care for the blues a whole lot. They respect the blues. The blues are powerful, but the blues always seem, like I said, they're the CIA. They have their own agenda. Their sisters go off, they disappear, and you never hear from them. Every once in a while, they'll pop up and talk about something, but then for the most part, they're hardly ever at the tower.
Because Moiraine is the only blue we've seen so far, right?
Yes, so far.
Okay.
So far, she's the only one we've seen.
Okay.
On top of that, Moiraine is even more special because she's doing something that no one has any idea what she's doing. Her trying to find the Dragon Reborn is not the same as their vigilance for finding men who can channel.
Okay.
there's a difference between those two things.
Mm-hmm.
Because remember, the prophecy says he can either break the world or fix the world.
Mm-hmm.
She's just trying to find them so she can train them and do all this stuff. But they don't know that. They don't know what she's doing. Not even her own Aja. They don't know what she's doing.
Okay.
But in general, all of the Aes Sedai have an interest in finding men who can channel so they can channel them to prevent the breaking of the world. Whether they're the dragon or not is sort of ancillary. The only reason why they're looking for false dragons or dragons is because they tend to rally a lot of people around them, because there are people kind of looking for him because they think he can fix their problems. That's why Logain was able to gather so many people around him, being charismatic, being powerful, and being a nobleman, and promising them something, promising them a change in the wheel, fixing the wheel. I can fix everything that's wrong, like a regular politician. And that is what's scary for the Aes Sedai, is that he would be able to raise an army based on the prophecy. Not only raise an army, but also bind, because part of the prophecy, he has to bind all of the kingdoms to him. And everyone will follow him into the last battle.
Okay.
Which creates another issue. No one wants to have to face the reality of a last battle, because if a last battle is coming, you know, the Aes Sedai are preparing, the Green are preparing for the last battle for the most part. Everyone is supposed to be preparing for this last battle, but no one really wants to do it, because that could mean the end of the world.
Okay.
So it's like the end of the world is coming. If there's an actual dragon and he's starting to have an army and he's starting to bind all these nations to him, that means the final battle is here. And whether or not we continue to exist is going to depend on that.
Right.
So that's why Marine is trying to find the dragon.
Okay.
The rest of the sisters are trying to kill or stop all the false dragons and men who can channel, because they don't want the world to break again. So it's a belief in the prophecy. It's how much do you believe in the prophecy? And the Reds and the Greens, they believe we don't need the dragon. We're going to be strong enough to defeat the Dark One at the last battle.
Okay.
Because that's what we're training to do.
Very complex.
Because
it's so, I guess it's so weird to me that the Aes Sedai, all of these women are trained in the same place. So you would think they have the same, I don't want to say indoctrination, but you would think that they would all be taught, okay, this is our goal, this is what we're supposed to do. And everybody within the certain, you know, the yellows, the greens, the blues, you all have missions that relate to this thing that we are training you. But then the reality is that, yes, they've all been trained on certain things and they've all been given certain knowledge and everything, but then they go out into the world and it's like they have their own different agendas.
One of the features of the book series is the politics involved. Remember George R. R. Martin and his Game of Thrones and all that stuff? He sort of copy and paste from The Wheel of Time. A lot of that politics, a lot of that conniving and machinations that go on behind the scenes. Each Aja has their own dogma, along with the Aes Sedai dogma. They're always not really a conflict between the two, but it's like you have this general broad thing, and then each Aja has their own specific agenda.
Okay.
You know, and remember, and your personality, that's why there's so many Ajas. Your personality traits sort of lends you to one of those personalities, which attracts you to a certain Aja.
Okay, I'm going to say this, and I'm saying this because you guys are my friends, and it's right in front of your face. Hufflepuff, Slytherin, come on, guys, this is Hogwarts. Seriously, you're missing. It's like I'm waiting. I'm just waiting, and neither one of you.
She's right. She's right.
Yeah.
She's right.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
The same thing.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
But to briefly go back over the whole copy and paste thing. Yeah, Martin did do that, but Sanderson did too. I also want to say that some of the earlier writings that they had in science fiction fantasy, Misty Lackley also did to a certain degree with the heralds, with their power sets. Whether you're an oath keeper or if you're riding circuit as a herald, so it is a fairly popular trope. But I think the difference is that Robert Jordan was really the first one, besides your traditional Dragonlance, which came a little bit earlier, to really set it into stone, because Charnier it didn't even do that. So
Jordan got it from Frank Herbert,
which I can see. I can see that
he got that. Yeah, the noble houses vying for power.
Right. I can see that too. Yeah, I see. I didn't put that together.
And the Aiel are the freemen. He took a lot of stuff from a lot of people.
True, but my thing is that it was very well done, and it inspired other people, because usually, up until I'd say 1980, 1978, when right around the time that Charnier first came out, the really big fantasy that we have, of course, was Lord of the Rings. I mean, there was a few different things, but it was more hardcore science fiction stuff, and of course you had Dune, but the whole idea of setting up this hierarchy of this different classes and the people and the different sets and stuff, I have to give it to him for that. I mean, Robert Jordan isn't my favorite writer. I haven't read a whole lot of him, but I will give him props because of that, we got Martin and we got some others to follow. So yeah, I'll give him props for that.
Okay. All right. I guess we'll just have to see how all of this plays out, because I think now they're really starting to, now that they're back at the tower, they're probably going to start getting a little bit more into the politics of the Aes Sedai while they're there. I don't know if I think that they'll be there very long, because Moraine, as they say, Moraine's been gone for 2 years, and she's always like, she doesn't consider the tower home. So I don't think that they'll stay there very long. They'll probably wait to see whether or not they'll find Egwene and Perrin, or if Egwene and Perrin don't make it to don't make it to Tar Valon, they're probably going to be like, okay, you know what, we need to go find them. But I don't see them staying very long, especially if people are already starting to talk to Moraine about that political stuff. Liandrin has her own objective, and she kind of comes to Moraine about that and basically says, yeah, you know what, you don't stay put for very long, and Nynaeve is going to be training as a novice whether she wants to or not, and she's going to need someone to mentor her, and if you're not here, well then, and I'm like, there is no way in hell Nynaeve would ever become a red, because she already does not like Liandrin, has not liked Liandrin from jump.
Right.
But
and
you
she
can
likes
see,
men.
right. But you can see that that's going to be like this kind of tug of war with her between Moraine and Liandrin, or maybe even one of the other, factors. I think Moraine was the one who was talking about the Yellows wanting her. So
I would say that sounds like a fair discussion, but I think Moraine was basically saying, yeah, she can become a novice, but I'm gonna tell you, she's a wisdom, and she ain't gonna listen to nobody, and she's gonna make up her own freaking mind.
Right.
Like, ain't nothing you or I can do to make her determine what she wants to be. That's gonna be up to her. And I think,
and we already see Nynaeve is like, we don't need the Aes Sedai. She told that to Rand. She was like, we don't need the Aes Sedai. We'll be fine on our own. And it's, she's already saying this because, of course, she knows that she's powerful. She may need some training, but she already knows she's powerful. So she's like, yeah, we're going to leave. Let the Aes Sedai come after us. Okay, I don't see none of them bringing other people back to life or keeping them from death or whatever. So
right,
it's
so
going to be interesting.
Marine's not going to participate. She don't have to participate in the tug of war with Liandrin. She doesn't, and she knows it. She's like, I can leave her here if I really want to. It's just
yeah. But also, I have a feeling, even though she doesn't really care about Moraine, if Moraine leaves, Nynaeve isn't staying there.
She's not staying.
She's not staying there because Lan going with Moraine, so she would have no reason to stay in the White Tower. Like, no, send me back home. Let the Trollocs come after me. I mean,
remember,
at this point, I feel like they could. I feel like at this point, even if they wanted to, they probably could go back home because who's going to think to check for them back at home at this point? They've been gone like a couple of months now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then
the Dark One might, but
across them anyway. But it's like,
well, the Dark One knows where they are at all times.
Yeah.
So if they can go back, he'll just send the Trolloc army there again. So
we don't want that.
No,
we don't want that. But
remember in Airbender, remember the cabbage guy? That's all I'm saying.
I don't remember the cabbage guy.
Okay,
how do you not know the cabbage guy?
I don't remember the cabbage guy.
In Airbender, especially in Korra, every time this poor man gets his cabbages just the right way, they run through and they mess up his cart. It's like a joke like every other episode.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. But okay. Anything else we need to say about this episode?
Shout out to Lan and Stepin for having an honest conversation about sleeping with two guys at the same time.
That's gonna be classic. He's like, what is there not?
I really didn't know where that was going. It's like, yeah, what do you think she'll accept my offer? It's like, yeah, but she's like, yeah, but still, I don't know. I've never been with a guy. And she's like, yeah.
And Lan was like, two guys. He was like,
you don't even know if they like you. He's like,
what's not to like?
That was awesome. Even though it's kind of sad because of what it's leading up to, it's like, at least he was still kind of the same guy there. He's like, but hey, there's first time for everything. So it's like, I mean, shout out to them for not being homophobic at all.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I've said before that I like about this show, because they treat like everything that in our world would be considered taboo or quote unquote weird, or they're doing this or whatever. It's like this show looks at that and says, oh, okay, y'all have a problem with this? Okay, you got a problem with two guys being together? Okay, let's throw some polyamory in there and just make it just real normal and whatever. That's one of the things I like about the show, because they take the things that are supposed to be taboo or whatever, and they make it a part of the world seamlessly, to the point where it's just like you said, they just had a regular conversation about it. He was just kind of like, and it wasn't that he was opposed to it. He was just like, okay, if I become one of Alana's warders, that's probably expected, which it might not be expected. Maybe she's with them because they're together already. Maybe he wouldn't be expected to be part of the whole thing. Like, I don't know, but then again, Alana might like orgies. Who knows? We don't know.
Have you ever asked me if more than one Aes Sedai can bond the same warder? Have you ever asked me that?
No. I don't think we have.
Oh, okay.
Hey,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Can more than one warder? Can a warder bond to more than one Aes Sedai?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Why'd you even ask? Why'd you even say?
So he did that just for this reaction.
Yes, he did.
He did it.
I have one thing to say about this episode. One thing that I've mentioned to you guys off air. I tried to watch this episode like 8 times. Okay. This episode lasted 19 hours. It was that long. It was a good episode, but man, just getting started. I mean, it took me at least 2 weeks to watch this episode because it just was so boring. And then it got good, and then it got boring, and then it got good, and then it stayed good. But getting to that second hump of, it's actually good. Oh my God. You said, Andy, this was a filler episode. This episode was 19 hours long. That's all.
I didn't think about it. I didn't have a problem with this episode.
Oh, I did.
They put a lot in this episode.
They did.
This was a exposition packed episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I enjoyed it. I mean, even though it was sad for the most part, because like I said, just Stepin, just the whole episode is just like you're watching the episode with a broken heart, and then you end it with an even more broken heart after he takes his life. But
Emotional damage. Like for real. Like oh my God. Like
that last scene, I forgot. I think the last scene was taken from some culture's actual, I should have researched it, but some culture's actual grieving ceremony where one person takes on the grief of everybody. Book readers had an issue with this because Lan is very stoic in the book. This would be considered out of character for him, but if you follow his journey through the book, this is definitely something that he would do. Like, just because he didn't do it in the book doesn't mean it's not something he would participate in. But the book Lan would definitely participate in something like this because he would want to shoulder the burden of everyone's grief.
Yeah, and like I said, the way that they portrayed his and Stepin's relationship in this series, I can't see anybody else taking that burden on. Like, he was the one that was with him up until he died, pretty much. You know, he was the one that was really kind of holding his hand, being the backbone while Stepin was going through this grief. And again, you know, the concept of time in this show, we don't know how long this process took. We don't know how long it was from the time they arrived in Tar Valon to the time they had the ceremony for Kerine to the time that Stepin took his life. This could have been days. It could have been weeks. We don't know, you know, but that's a lot of time for you to sit there and bond with someone over a shared loss and to try to, you know, take that burden from that person. And then to ultimately, I don't want to say Lan failed, but, you know, you try to be there for this person as much as you can to help them through it. And then for it to end the way that it did, I couldn't see anybody else being in that position and doing what Lan did during that ceremony. It wouldn't have made sense for me for anyone else to do it, like for Maxim or Yvonne to do it. It wouldn't have made sense, and I don't think it would have had the impact that it had if it had been anyone else besides Lan. I just don't.
Yeah.
So I guess that's it for this episode, because I think we've pretty much touched on everything else, and I don't need to hear Mike say emotional damage anymore during this show. So he's got it as his screen name. You've got emotional damage. Well,
emotional damage.
No, yeah. On that note, that's it for our show. You can find us online at www.fandomhybrid.com. We are on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Fandom Hybrid. You can watch our videos on YouTube, and you can listen to us on all major podcast streaming platforms. Thanks for listening. We hope you join the conversation next time.